Bhagavati Uttam Shloke Bhakti Naishtiki. So continuing with our discussion on Srimad Bhagavatam, second canto, sixth chapter, Purusha Shukta confirmed. Text number 21 onwards. Yeah. So Brahmaji is further speaking to Narad Muni. Sriti vichakrame vishwam sashana nashane ubhau yad vidya cha vidya cha yad avidya cha vidya cha purushastubhya shreya. By his energies, the all-pervading personality of Godhead is thus comprehensively the master in the activities of controlling and in devotional service. He is the ultimate master of both nescience and factual knowledge of all situations. Sriti Vichakrame Vishwang. Okay. The Vishwam is significant in this verse. One who travels perfectly in every field of activity is called the Purusha or Kshetragya. So this we are studying in Bhagavad Gita, Kshetragya, this is what Arjuna is asking in 13th chapter. So here, Krishna's mercy, we got similar words. So one who travels perfectly in every field of activity is called the Purusha or Kshetragya. Means every field. So Krishna so in that chapter we have learned that living entity is also Kshetragya and Krishna as super soul is also Kshetragya. The difference is living entity knows only his body, his field of activity, but Krishna knows every field of activity. So these two terms, Kshetragya and Purusha, are equally applicable to both the individual self and the supreme self. So Purusha actually means the enjoyer. The literal meaning is enjoyer, one who enjoys the Prakriti. So, so in one way, the individual self or the soul is an enjoyer, or he tries to be the enjoyer of his field of activity, the body. But actually, we are Prakriti. We are the Tatastha Shakti of Krishna. But we are trying to be Purusha. But Krishna is original Purusha. Krishna is not Prakriti. He is a Purusha. He is a real enjoyer. Prabhupada is saying this matter is explained as in Bhagavad Gita chapter 13. Kshetra means the place, and one who enjoys the place is called the Kshetragya. The individual self knows about his limited field of activities, but the Supreme Self, the Lord, knows about the unlimited field of activities. The individual soul knows about his own thinking, feeling, and willing activities, but the Super Soul or the Paramatma, the Supreme Controller, being present everywhere, knows everyone's thinking, feeling, and willing activities, and as such, the individual living entity is a minute master of his personal affairs, whereas the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a master of everyone's affairs, past, present, and future. So that's a difference. So individual entity, us, like Jivatma, is a minute master of his personal affairs, not even complete master of our personal affairs. But Krishna, he is the complete master of everyone's personal affairs. Only the ignorant person does not know this difference between the Lord and the living entities. The living entities, as distinguished from incognizant matter, may be qualitatively equal to the Lord in cognizance, but the living entity can never be equal to Lord in full knowledge of past, present, and future. So qualitatively, we are the same. I mean, because we are part and parcel of Krishna, so we have the same qualities, but in so very minute quantity. And because the living entity is partially cognizant, he is therefore sometimes forgetful of his own identity. This forgetfulness is specifically mentioned in the field of the Ekpad Vibhuti of the Lord or in the material world. But in the Tribhad Vibhuti of field of actions or in the spiritual world, there is no forgetfulness by the living entities. who are free from all kinds of contaminations resulting from forgetful state of existence. So, so since we are minute part and parcel of Krishna, so we have the tendency of forgetting Krishna or forgetting our own identity. We have the tendency because when we come under Maya in the material world. So this is Prabhupada saying the Ekpad Vibhuti, the 1/4 of the creation. So those in the 1/4 creation, they are the conditioned souls. They can forget. Their senses are conditioned. Their senses are imperfect. But when the same living entity goes back to the spiritual world, the 3-path vibhuti, the three rest of the 3/4 of the creation, then he does not forget anything because then he doesn't change the body. He becomes godly. He doesn't become God, but he becomes godly. He gets a similar potencies, but that getting similar potencies is only by mercy of Krishna. That's one thing the devotee, a living entity in the spiritual world, doesn't forget. The material body is a symbol of the gross and subtle form of forgetfulness. Therefore, the whole atmosphere of the material world is called avidya or nescience, whereas the whole atmosphere of the spiritual world is called vidya or full of knowledge. There are different stages of avidya, and they are called dharma, artha, and moksha. So different stages of avidya also mentioned. And Prabhupada writing there, dharma, artha, moksha. This is what a living entity in the material world is running after actually. Dharma, artha, and moksha. The idea of moksha liberation held by the monist in the matter of oneness of the living entity and the Lord by ultimately merging in one is also the last stage of materialism or forgetfulness. So moksha, the moksha that Mayavadis talk about is basically to merge inside the Brahm Jyoti or Krishna into the Supreme is the ultimate of forgetfulness. Means that we forget our real identity, that I am servant of God. And we want to annihilate or kill our existence. Knowledge of the qualitative oneness of the self and the super-self is partial knowledge. And ignorance also, because there is no knowledge of quantitative difference. The individual self can never be equal to Lord in cognizance. Otherwise, he could not be placed in the state of forgetfulness. So because there is a stage of forgetfulness of the individual selves, of the living entities, there is always a gulf of difference between the Lord and the living entity, as between the part and the whole. The part is never equal to the whole. So the conception of 100% equality of the living being with the Lord is also nescience. So that's also avidya, nescience or ignorance. Thinking that we become one with Krishna. We'll never become one with Krishna. If we have ever forgotten our real identity, then that means we can never be one with Krishna, never be equal to Krishna, because Krishna never forgets his identity. Of course, in the matter of pastime, he lets Yog Maya cover himself. That's a different story. But in our case, Yog Maya is not covering us, it's Mahamaya or the real Maya that is covering us. In the field of nescience, activities are directed towards lording it over the creation. In the material world, therefore, everyone is engaged in acquiring material opulence to lord it over the material world. Therefore, there is always clash and frustration, which are the symptoms of nescience. But in the field of knowledge, there is devotional service to the Lord, bhakti. Therefore, there is no chance of being contaminated by the influence of nescience or forgetfulness, avidya, in the liberated stage of devotional activities. The Lord is thus the proprietor of the fields, both of nescience and cognition, and it remains the choice of the living entity to exist in either of the above regions. So Prabhupada, look at the second last line of this paragraph. So no chance of being contaminated by the influence of nescience or forgetfulness in the liberated stage of devotional activities. So even in the beginning stages of devotional activities, we are covered. We are very much covered by this ignorance. And in ignorance only we think, I'm the controller, I'm the enjoyer. So devotional service, which is meant to be service. But when we start thinking, I'm the controller of this service, or I am the enjoyer of this service, means we are still very much in the beginning stages. We have to understand Krishna is the controller. Everything that is happening is by the mercy, by the will of Krishna. And everything that is happening is for his pleasure. That's it. In the material world, if we look around, because 99.99% of people, they don't even have an idea of devotion service, and don't want to do devotion service. And we can see they are running around trying to acquire more and more. Why? So that they can claim that they are the enjoyers or proprietors of more and more of material acquisitions or material opulence. But one can never control material opulence. One cannot have control over it. Maya is very, very powerful. We cannot control. Only Krishna can control. So our position is to serve, actually. And we forget that position. That's why one of the bhajans it is said, it said, Bhuliya Jeev Bhog Vancha Kare. Krishna Bhuliya Jeev Bhog Vancha Kare. Means forgetting Krishna, a Jivatma, is desiring of what? Bhoga, to enjoy the material life. Nikatastha Maya Tare Jhapatiya Dhare. And Maya is standing next to him. And she's doing what? Jhapatiya Dhare. She's slapping him left and right. And he thinks I'm enjoying. He thinks I'm controlling I'm the control of material opulences that I see. He doesn't see, he doesn't understand. Maya is slapping him left and right. Why? Because he has forgotten Krishna. Forgotten Krishna means forgotten that I am servant of Krishna. Forgotten that I am here to serve Krishna. That's it. And in forgetting him, and on top of it, we are desiring to enjoy this material life. That's the biggest ignorance. Text 22. And look at it. Who is saying that? Brahmaji, the first creator of this material world. I mean, first created being, and after Krishna, he is a creator. Because not too many people know about Krishna as a creator. So they assume Brahmaji is the original creator, even if they assume like that. That person is speaking like this. And he after doing all the creation or knowing how to do the creation, he tells Krishna, what is this? You want me to make such creation that put jivas into ignorance? What kind of creation is that? But this is what Krishna wanted for our rectification. Text 22. Yasmadandam viranjagye bhutendriya gunatmaka tad dravyam atyagad vishwam gobhi surya ivatapan. From that personality of Godhead, all the universal globes and the universal form with all material elements, qualities and senses are generated. Yet he is aloof from such material manifestations, like the sun, which is separate from its rays and heat. So from that personality, all the universal global globes and the universal forms with all material elements, qualities and senses are generated. But yet he is separate from material manifestations. The supreme truth has been ascertained in the previous verses, Purusha or the Purushottama, the supreme person. The absolute person is Ishvara or the supreme controller. By his different energies, the Ekpad Vibhuti manifestation of the material energy of the Lord is just like one of the many mistresses of the Lord, by whom the Lord is not so much attracted, as indicated in the language of Gita, Bhinna Prakriti. But the region of the Tripad Vibhuti, being a pure spiritual manifestation of the energy of the Lord, is, so to speak, more attractive to him. So this Ekpad Vibhuti or the material creation, manifestation of material energy, is not so much dear to Krishna. That's what Prabhupada is writing, because he says in Gita, this is my Bhinna Prakriti, separated energy. But the spiritual energy, that is his Tripad Vibhuti or the three-fourth of the creation, is a pure spiritual manifestation. It's very more attractive to him. The Lord therefore generates the material manifestations by impregnating the material energy. And then within the manifestation, he expands himself as a gigantic form of the Vishwarupa. The Vishwarupa, as it was shown to Arjuna, is not the original form of the Lord. We all know that. It's not the original form. The original form of the Lord is a transcendental form of Purushottama or Krishna himself in the Shyam Sundar Roop. That is the original form. It's very nicely explained herein that he expands himself just as like the sun. The sun expands itself by its terrible heat and rays. Yet the sun is always aloof from such rays and heat. The impersonalist takes into consideration the rays of the Lord without any information of the tangible, transcendental, eternal form of the Lord known as Krishna. So, the shloka, this example is given, the sun and the sun rays. The sun expands itself by terrible heat and rays, yet the sun is always aloof from such rays and heat. They all expand from sun, but sun means sun god and the sun planet in itself. Therefore, Krishna in his supreme personal form with two hands and flute is bewildering for the impersonalists who can accommodate only the gigantic Vishwarupa of the Lord. They should know that the rays of the sun are secondary to the sun. And similarly, the impersonal gigantic form of the Lord is also secondary to the personal form as Purushottama. So that's what it says in Brahma Samhita, the supreme personality of Godhead, Govinda, the one who enlivens the senses of everyone by his personal bodily rays, resides in his transcendental abode called Goloka. Yet he is present in every nook and corner of his creation by expansion of happy spiritual rays, equal in power to his personal potency of bliss. So he is living in his transcendental abode, Golok Vrindavan, but at the same time he is present everywhere by the expansion of spiritual rays. He is therefore simultaneously personal and impersonal, or he is the one without a second, displaying complete unity in a diversity of material and spiritual manifestations. He is separate from everything and still nothing is different from him. So that is his Achintya Shakti. He is everywhere, but also he is not everywhere. Means personal as Shyam Sundar Krishna, he is not everywhere. He is only with his devotees or in the spiritual world. But as impersonal feature, Brahmjyoti feature, which is also one of his aspects, he is everywhere. But those who don't have eyes, they cannot see that. And those who don't have eyes of love, they cannot see that. Text 23. Yadasya nabhyan nalinahad ahamasam mahatmana navidam yagya sambharan purusha vyavan vite. When I was born from the abdominal lotus flower of the Lord Mahavishnu, the great person, I had no ingredients for sacrificial performances except the bodily limbs of the great personality of Godhead. Lord Brahma, the creator of the cosmic manifestation, is known as Swayambhu, or one who is born without father and mother. So Brahmaji is known as Swayambhu, and the first Manu that comes from Brahmaji is Swayambhuva Manu. The general process is that a living creature is born out of sex combination, the male father and the female mother. But Brahma, the firstborn living being, is born out of the abdominal lotus flower of Mahavishnu, plenary expansion of Lord Krishna. The abdominal lotus flower is part of the Lord's bodily limbs, and Brahma is born out of the lotus flower. Therefore, Lord Brahma is also a part of the Lord's body. So lotus flower is coming from Krishna or Lord Mahavishnu's or Garbhodaksha Vishnu's abdomen, and Lord Brahma appears on that. So he is born out of that lotus flower. So it can be considered that he is part of Lord's body. Brahma, after his appearance in the gigantic hollow of the universe, saw darkness and nothing else. He felt perplexity, and from his heart he was inspired by the Lord to undergo austerity, therefore acquiring the ingredients for sacrificial performances. So can we imagine in the beginning of creation, before Brahmaji created everything, so there was Garbhodaksha Vishnu lying on the Garbhodak Sagar, which is half of the universe filled with that water. And from Garbhodaksha Vishnu's abdomen or navel, a lotus flower comes. Brahmaji appears on that. And Brahmaji hasn't yet made sun and moon. So it was completely dark in the universe. And Brahmaji, he was the only living entity because he could not even see Garbhodaksha Vishnu. He was the only person alone, and it was complete dark. So in that darkness, he was inspired by the Lord to undergo austerity. Actually, he was asking the Lord what to do, who am I, what is my function? And then he heard the noise, tap, tap. So he understood I have to do tapasya. Of course, sometimes devotees ask different questions. So sometimes somebody asks, so Brahmaji heard the voice tap, tap. So how did he know he had to do tapasya? Because he didn't know any language at that time. Nobody taught him any language. So devotees, they think differently actually. We actually start thinking from our perspective. Brahmaji, from the time he was born, he was self-realized soul. It's not like us, like we take birth when we are little babies and we grow up, and then if we are in America, we are taught ABCD. Of course, everywhere it is taught ABCD. But suppose we are in India, and then we also taught Ka Kha Ga, or in China we are taught Chinese language. Then we know that language, and then we go to school to study that language. And then we know how to make words and sentences out of that language. So how did Brahmaji know what does this tap, tap, tap mean? How did he know he is supposed to do tapasya? But he's self-realized soul. He's not born like us. He doesn't take birth and then he was baby and then he grows and then he goes to school and then he learns Sanskrit or something like that. Nothing. Okay. So he felt perplexity, and from his heart he was inspired by the Lord to undergo austerity. thereby acquiring the ingredients for sacrificial performances. But there was nothing besides the two of them, namely the personality of Mahavishnu and Brahma himself, born of the bodily part of the Lord. For sacrificial performances, many ingredients were in need, especially animals. The animal sacrifice is never meant for killing the animal, but for achieving the successful result of the sacrifice. Thus, Brahma created even the sacrificial ingredients out of the bodily limbs of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, which means that the cosmic order was created by Brahma himself. Also, nothing is created out of nothing, but everything is created from the person of the Lord. The Lord says in Bhagavad Gita, Aham sarvasya prabhavo matta sarvam pravartate. Everything is made from my bodily limbs. Of course, in Bhagavad Gita, what Prabhupada said, everything comes from me. So here, Brahmaji is doing the sacrifice out of Garbhodaksha's bodily limbs, means he is going to create everything from the body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu. Of course, body of Garbhodaksha Vishnu, and after that it is created, it becomes a Vishwarupa, a universal form. So everything is part and parcel of Krishna. Nothing is separate from. The impersonalists argue that there is no use in worshipping the Lord when everything is nothing but the Lord himself. The personalist, however, worships the Lord out of great sense of gratitude, utilizing the ingredients born out of the bodily limbs of the Lord. The fruits and flowers are available from the body of the earth, and yet Mother Earth is worshipped by the sensible devotee with the ingredients born from the earth. So everything comes from Lord. And the devotee understands that, and he offers everything back to the Lord out of gratitude, great sense of gratitude. And gratitude comes from humility. Until we are humble, until we see the see in the right sense, right way, then we offer everything back to the Lord. Then we understand everything comes from the Lord. Nothing is separate from the Lord. Prabhupada says, similarly, Mother Ganges is worshipped by the water of the Ganges, and yet the worshipper enjoys the result of such worship. So when we go to Ganga, we take some water of Ganga in our Anjali and put it back, they offer it back. Just this process of offering with the right consciousness, with gratitude, this is what pleases Mother Ganga. And she gives us benedictions. It's so simple. Worship of the Lord is also performed by the ingredients born from the body limbs of the Lord. And yet the worshipper, who is himself a part of the Lord, achieves the result of devotional service to the Lord. While the impersonalist wrongly concludes that he is the Lord himself, the personalist or a devotee, out of great gratitude, worships the Lord in devotional service, knowing perfectly well that nothing is different from the Lord. The devotee therefore endeavors to apply everything in the service of the Lord, because he knows that everything is the property of the Lord, and that no one can claim anything as one's own. The perfect conception of oneness helps a worshipper in being engaged in his loving service, whereas the impersonalist, being falsely puffed up, remains a non-devotee forever without being recognized by the Lord. So that's the difference between devotee and non-devotee. And this is what Brahmaji is explaining, how everything is coming into being. So now he is telling Narad Muni about himself, how he comes out, and then how he does the creation. So anyway, I'll stop here. See anybody has any questions or comments.
Thanks, Prabhuji, for the class.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Thanks for attending.
I was expecting that.
So how was Mayapur? You went there, right?
Yeah. It was good. I just went for the retreat by His Grace Mahatma Prabhu.
Oh, Jai Ho. How is he doing?
He is doing good, Prabhu. And it was a 5 days retreat, and I just attended that and came back.
Oh, okay. In fact, right now, Panchtattva Mahabhishek is going on.
Yeah, simultaneously I'm watching that also.
Oh, okay. Chalo. You all have a wonderful day. Hare Krishna. Jai Shri Prabhupada.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Jai
Hare
Shri
Krishna,
Prabhu.
Prabhuji. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Prabhuji.